I know what you're thinking. How does a married woman end up in her own bedroom with her son's best friend while her husband is sitting downstairs, completely clueless? I wish I could tell you it was just one bad decision. A single mistake. But the truth is, it started long before that night. The moment his hands touched my skin, I felt it. His touch was soft but shaking, like he was barely holding himself together. His breath was warm against my neck. I could feel his heart pounding through his fingertips. And then he whispered something I never expected to hear. "Wait, please, it's my first time." My entire body froze. Because my husband, Daniel, was downstairs, in the living room, right below us. The man I married, the father of my children, completely unaware of what was happening right above his head. If you've ever felt invisible in your own marriage, if you've ever felt like you were slowly disappearing while pretending everything was fine, you might understand how I got here. Years of being ignored. Years of being taken for granted. Until one day, someone actually saw me again. Jason, my son's best friend, he didn't just see me as a mom. He saw me as a woman. And when you've been starving for attention for that long, even the smallest touch feels like a drug. I never thought I'd let it go this far. But that night, in the dark with the rain beating against the windows, with my husband just steps away, I crossed a line I can never uncross. What happened next? It didn't stop there. Not even close. The fallout from that one moment nearly destroyed everything I thought I had. Subscribe to Crossing Lines right now, because stories like this happen more often than you think. And trust me, you do not want to miss what happened after this. Looking back, maybe this started long before that night. Maybe it started the first time Daniel chose to answer his emails instead of looking at me. You know, people always assume affairs start with lust. But for me, it started with loneliness. The kind that eats at you slowly, quietly, until one day you wake up and realize you don't even recognize your own life anymore. I'm 35, married for nearly 16 years. We had our son early. I got pregnant in college. We rushed into marriage. It wasn't perfect, but for a while, I thought we had something solid. Daniel was never a bad man. Just busy, always building his career. Always chasing the next promotion. Always trying to prove something to himself, I guess. And somewhere along the way, I got left behind. It started small. Late nights at the office. Business trips that popped up last minute. At first, I believed him. I wanted to believe him. But when the whispers started, when friends started hinting about the pretty young assistant he was always traveling with, I couldn't ignore it anymore. But when I confronted him, he flipped it back on me. Don't start with your paranoia, Sarah. You're always so emotional. Can't you just trust me for once? I did trust him. For years. But trust has a limit. Especially when your husband touches his phone more than he touches you. We became strangers who shared a house. He slept beside me every night, but the distance between us in that bed might as well have been an ocean. And then, there was Jason. Jason's been my son's best friend for years. They grew up together, practically inseparable. He was polite, respectful, always called me Mrs. H. Always offered to help carry groceries, mow the lawn, fix little things around the house. But behind his polite smile, there was something else. The way his eyes lingered on me. The quick glances when he thought I wasn't looking. At first, I told myself it was innocent, just a boy being, well, a boy. But as time went on, those glances turned into something bolder, more deliberate, more dangerous. And the worst part? The more invisible Daniel made me feel, the more Jason looked at me like I still existed. When Daniel would walk past me like I was furniture, Jason would look directly into my eyes. When Daniel would cancel dinner for another work meeting, Jason would ask if I needed help with anything. I should have shut it down. I knew I should have. But after years of feeling unseen, that small flicker of attention felt intoxicating. It all came to a head one weekend. My son invited Jason to stay over, nothing unusual. They did it all the time. Video games, late-night snacks, loud laughter echoing through the house. But that weekend, Daniel got called away on a last-minute business trip. Another emergency. Another assistant. Same excuses. So, it was just me, my son, and Jason. The first night went by without incident. But the second night, that's when the storm came. Heavy rain. Thunder shaking the house. The wind howling through the trees like it was alive. And then the sink started leaking in the kitchen. Jason, ever the helpful guest, offered to fix it. Don't worry, Mrs. H. I've got it. I tried to insist, but he smiled, that same soft, dangerous smile, and rolled up his sleeves. I stood nearby, handing him tools, watching as water splashed onto his shirt. His clothes clung to his skin, revealing a body that, if I'm being brutally honest, I had started noticing more than I should have. And then it happened. As I reached to hand him the wrench, my fingers accidentally brushed against his. It was such a small thing. A simple touch. But the electricity that shot through my body was undeniable. Our eyes met. For a moment, neither of us moved. The storm outside raged louder, but inside that kitchen, it was dead silent. Jason's voice was calm, but his words were loaded. You deserve someone who actually sees you. I froze. My breath caught in my throat. Part of me screamed to shut it down. To set boundaries. To remind him and myself who I was. A wife. A mother. His best friend's mom. But another part of me, the part that had been starved for years, didn't want him to stop. And that was the first time I noticed. He wasn't looking at me like a boy anymore. After that night, I couldn't stop thinking about it. The touch, the look in his eyes, the words he spoke. They haunted me. I kept replaying that moment over and over like a movie I couldn't turn off. I found myself avoiding Jason, but craving his presence at the same time. Whenever he was in the house, my heart would race. I'd feel his eyes on me, respectful on the surface, but underneath, they were burning with something I didn't want to acknowledge. And the guilt was unbearable. I kept asking myself, what kind of woman am I? How could I even entertain these thoughts? But then another voice inside me would whisper, is it so wrong to want to feel wanted? Had I really been a wife all these years, or just a roommate? Every time Daniel would come home late, smelling of perfume that wasn't mine. Every time he would roll over in bed without touching me. Every time he brushed off my attempts at intimacy with, I'm tired, or maybe tomorrow. The voice grew louder. Jason made me feel alive again. He noticed when I changed my hair. He complimented my dress. He listened when I talked. He laughed at my jokes. He looked at me like I was still a woman. Not some aging housewife. And God help me. I started dressing for him. Subtle changes at first, tighter jeans, lower necklines. Telling myself it was just for me, but knowing full well it wasn't. The line between harmless attention and dangerous desire was blurring fast. Every glance, every accidental touch, every lingering moment between us added fuel to a fire I was desperately trying to control. But deep down, I knew it was only a matter of time before the dam would break. A few nights later, it happened again. My son had fallen asleep early after a long day of practice. Daniel was still out of town, like always. And Jason was still at the house. It was late, nearly midnight. We were sitting in the living room, half watching some old romantic comedy playing on TV. The rain was falling outside again, the soft patter against the windows filling the silences between us. At first, it felt innocent. Just two people trying to pass the time while waiting for the storm to die down. But beneath the surface, I could feel it simmering. That same unspoken energy between us, like static electricity waiting to spark. We sat on opposite ends of the couch. Safe distance. Respectful distance. But as the night went on, that distance started closing. I reached for the popcorn bowl between us, and so did he. Our hands touched. Neither of us pulled away. For a moment, Our fingers lingered, barely brushing, but it was enough to send a rush of heat through my chest. I tried to focus on the movie, to act like nothing happened. But I could feel his eyes on me. Every glance, every accidental touch, it all felt deliberate now. Then the thunder cracked loudly, making me flinch. Jason noticed immediately, leaning just a bit closer. "Are you okay?" he asked softly. His voice was low, intimate. He wasn't speaking like a friend's son anymore. "I'm fine," I whispered, barely able to meet his gaze. But he didn't look away. Instead, he inched closer, so close I could feel his breath on my cheek. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, he said the words that would haunt me. "You're the most beautiful woman I've ever seen, Mrs. H." My heart was pounding. I let out a nervous laugh, trying to brush it off. "Oh, Jason, you don't have to say that." But even as I said it, I couldn't stop the warmth flooding my body. A part of me wanted him to say it again. A part of me needed to hear it. He held my gaze for what felt like forever, his eyes filled with something raw, something dangerous. The air between us thickened. The rain intensified, as if nature itself was warning me. Thunder rolled again, and that's when he moved even closer, just inches away now. I could feel his body heat, smell his cologne. My breath quickened, but I didn't move. And then, without asking, without permission, he kissed me. His lips were soft but hungry, full of nervous energy, and I didn't stop him. That kiss should have been the line. That moment should have been where I pulled away, reminded myself of who I was. But I didn't. Instead, I kissed him back. At first, it was slow, hesitant, like we both knew how wrong it was, but couldn't stop. But then it deepened, our lips pressing harder, breathing quickening, hands starting to explore dangerous territory. The guilt screamed inside my head, but it was drowned out by something stronger. Desire, validation, a desperate hunger that I hadn't felt in years. Jason pulled back slightly, his forehead resting against mine. His voice trembled. "Mrs. H. I've never done this before." I stared at him, breathless, my heart slamming inside my chest. "Wait, please, it's my first time." Those words hit me like a wall. I should have ended it. I should have pushed him away, sent him home, and locked myself in the bathroom to cry. But instead, all I could think was, for once, someone needs me. For once, I wasn't invisible. Jason wasn't using me. He wasn't distracted. He wasn't bored or irritated like Daniel. He was here, fully present, wanting me. I led him upstairs. Every step up that staircase felt heavier than the last. The house was so quiet, only the rain and our breathing filled the space. My son was asleep down the hall, completely unaware of what was about to happen just a few doors away. When we reached my bedroom, I closed the door behind us, my hands trembling. Jason stood there, nervous, but his eyes were filled with a kind of devotion I hadn't seen in years. We stood there for a moment, staring at each other, two people who knew they were about to destroy something sacred, but couldn't stop. As I reached for him, his voice cracked again. "Are you sure?" I nodded. That final nod sealed it. The moment our bodies touched, it was like the dam finally burst. Every emotion, years of loneliness, anger, frustration, longing, all crashing down at once. The panic was there, like a shadow lurking in the corner of my mind. But the passion drowned it. His hands were unsteady but eager. My body responded like it had been waiting for this moment for years. There was guilt. So much guilt. But also relief. Relief to finally feel alive again. Every second was reckless and dangerous. But I couldn't pull away. For one night, I let go of everything. One night where I wasn't a wife, a mother, or someone being ignored. One night where I was wanted. The next morning was unbearable. The sun came up like it always does, but everything felt different. Heavy. Wrong. Too bright. Almost like the light itself was exposing my shame. I woke up before anyone else, slipped quietly out of bed, and went straight to the shower. Like scrubbing my skin could somehow wash away what had happened. The guilt was suffocating. I couldn't even look at myself in the mirror. The woman staring back at me felt like a stranger. A traitor. A fool. Jason was still asleep when I tiptoed out of the bedroom. The moment his eyes fluttered open, I saw it. That same dangerous glimmer. But now, it was mixed with something else. Possessiveness. We barely spoke that morning. My son was downstairs eating cereal, clueless. Jason pretended like nothing happened, flashing his usual polite smile. But under the table, his foot brushed against mine. I pulled away instantly, my heart slamming against my ribs. When he finally left that afternoon, I breathed a shaky sigh of relief, but it didn't last long. Because that's when the messages started. At first, they were sweet. I can't stop thinking about you. Last night was everything. But as the hours passed and I stopped replying, the tone shifted. Why aren't you answering me? I need to see you again. You're not going to pretend this didn't happen, right? Panic gripped me. I deleted every message as it came in, my hands shaking. But my stomach twisted tighter each time his name lit up my screen. And then Daniel came home. He walked through the door like nothing had changed, dumping his suitcase by the stairs. Miss me? He asked casually. I forced a smile, nodded, said all the right words, but inside, I was breaking. Every glance Daniel gave me felt loaded. Was he suspicious? Did he know? Could he feel the shift in the air? At dinner, I could barely eat. My hands wouldn't stop trembling. Daniel noticed. You okay? He asked, raising an eyebrow. Yeah, just tired, I whispered, avoiding his eyes. But it got worse. Later that night, long after everyone had gone to bed, my phone buzzed again on the nightstand. Another message from Jason. But this time, it wasn't sweet. It wasn't desperate. It was dangerous. If you don't answer, I'll come clean to Daniel. I can't lose you. I froze. My breath hitched. My heart felt like it might explode right there in my chest. I snatched up my phone, trying to delete the message, but my fingers fumbled, clumsy with panic. And that's when Daniel stirred beside me. His eyes opened, groggy but alert. What's wrong? He mumbled, noticing the light from my phone. And nothing, I stammered, trying to flip it over. But it was too late. He reached for it. I tried to stop him, but Daniel wasn't stupid. His face darkened as he read the screen. And, just like that, everything unraveled. The silence that followed was worse than any shouting match. Daniel just stared at me. His face didn't explode in rage, no. It was colder than that. Like he was watching me drown, and he'd already given up on throwing me a rope. How long? He finally asked, voice low and eerily calm. I couldn't answer. My lips moved, but no words came out. The weight of my betrayal pinned me to the bed like chains. He stood up slowly, pacing the room, rubbing his hand through his hair. The tension in the room was suffocating. I knew something was off for months, he said bitterly. The late-night showers. The sudden phone paranoia. The new clothes. You really thought I wouldn't notice? I started crying, silently, helplessly. Was it just once? He asked again. I didn't answer. He laughed bitterly. That's what I thought. Then his voice hardened. You slept with our son's best friend, Sarah. Do you even grasp what you've done? I couldn't look at him. The shame was unbearable. But it wasn't over. Because Jason wouldn't stop. The very next morning, he texted me again. I don't care if he knows. I love you. Tell him you love me too. We can be together. His words were like poison now. He had crossed from infatuation into full-blown obsession. That night, I found Jason waiting outside our house. Standing there like some lovesick stalker, drenched in rain, staring up at my bedroom window. Daniel saw him too. He didn't say a word. He simply turned to me and asked one final question, his voice as steady as stone. Do I leave? Or do you finally tell me the whole truth? And in that moment, I had no answer. And that's where we are now. No happy ending. No forgiveness. No clean escape. Every day, I wake up wondering if today's the day Daniel finally walks out. If Jason will show up again, refusing to let go. Every night, I replay every choice that led me here. How a single moment of weakness spiraled into something I may never recover from. Was I selfish? Desperate? Or simply human? I still don't know. But what I do know is this. Once you cross certain lines, there's no going back. If you've ever faced a moment that could destroy everything, drop your thoughts in the comments. Was it love? Was it weakness? Or was it something else? Don't forget to subscribe to Crossing Lines, where we pull back the curtains on the dangerous truths people live behind closed doors. Because stories like this, they're happening more often than you think. And you won't want to miss the next one.